ABC. Yeah, you know the ABC. You learned that way back when in school. Everybody did, and we all know it. But when it comes to electric vehicles, what does ABC really mean? Is this just a myth? Is it still applying today? What is going on with ABC and electric vehicles? Well, we'll charge this subject in this video. Interestingly, many people that don't have an EV, don't want an EV, and are even against EVs know ABC. Why the heck do so many people know ABC? What does ABC actually stand for? It stands for always be charging, which obviously that is not possible because as you're driving, you can't be charging, right? And if you're going to the store, you probably can't be charging. Sometimes you can. You're going to work, probably not charging. Sometimes you can. Going to the gym, sometimes you can, but most of the time you cannot. So ABC is impossible because there are times where you have to use your electric car and you can't be charging. Just like a gas car is not always filling up with gas, right? It goes to the gas station, fills up, then drives and does other stuff. But when the ABC comes in, is mainly like if you're at home, do you have to be plugged in? Do you have to be charging? Is there a difference between being plugged in and charging? Yes, there is. And so many other people that think they know about electric vehicles and they heard of ABC, they assume that every time possible, so being at home mainly, you have to plug in your vehicle and you have to charge it. Well, if you continuously charge something, any battery, regardless of what it is, that may be the 12-volt battery in your old car. If you just keep charging and charging, it starts to evaporate the liquid inside the battery. It starts to smell like sulfur. It will stink. If you keep charging it, it will explode. Well, that's what batteries do. And I'm talking about your 12-volt battery. I'm not even talking about the lithium-ion big battery pack in a car. But all batteries basically act the same. The same thing with cell phone batteries, laptop batteries, vaping, these little vapor things, they have a battery in them. And I don't know, maybe you remember here a few years ago, these vapors, videos went around of those actually catching fire in people's pocket. There was something about a Samsung, I think it was Samsung cell phones that they caught fire or exploded or whatever around the same time too. Why? Well, because there were some issues with battery charging. The battery was overcharged, allowing this to happen, and it was an easy fix. It's a software that basically controls that. And in case of the cell phones, I remember they had the wrong software or something. So a software update solved that problem for all the phones that haven't caught on fire yet. And I would assume with all these vapey things, I don't know what you even call them. What do you call this vape thing? An e-cigarette? Or I don't know what the hell they're called. But anyway, I assume they just took them out of production and changed it in production because they couldn't do an over-the-air software update. So I guess some of those were recalled. I don't know. If you know, leave a comment down below. Tell me if you remember that and what the solution was there. But yeah. But anyway, when it comes to electric vehicles, it's basically the same thing. You can't be charging endless. You have to stop charging. Just because if you overcharge the battery, something's going to happen. Usually just the same thing as with a 12-volt lead acid battery. A similar thing happens with a big old lithium-ion battery pack. It will start to smoke, probably smell a bit, and it can eventually catch on fire. Explosion is relatively unlikely, but it's possible. So yeah, we can't be charging all the time. But where does ABC even come from? The way I know it is from what I consider the OG, the original EV master, Björn Nyland from Norway. You may or may not know him, but when he started, I think he started just on YouTube with some videos about gas cars and things, but he was awaiting the arrival of his Tesla Model S back in, I believe, 2013. So he got one of the early Tesla Model S. I believe it was a performance. I'm not 100% sure anymore. I mean, this is like 13 years ago now. It's 2026, right? So, and he used to say that a lot. And that's kind of where I know it from. He always said ABC, 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 and he always plugged in his car whenever possible. Well, that car is basically an old car nowadays. 2013, it's 2026, so it's at least 13 years old. That was, in regards to technology, that is old technology. And the ABC may have existed before. I don't know if he created it or someone else did. If you have an idea of where it came from, if it didn't come from Björn, where did it come from? Leave a comment down below, tell me, so we know where it came from. Because when he got his Tesla Model S in, I think, 2013 or 2014, there were obviously already EVs out there. Production EVs were out there already. There was the most famous of all is probably the Nissan Leaf that went into production in 2010. There were some other smaller ones. Mitsubishi i-MiEV, I think, was one of them that was already out there. And that was sold in many places around the world under different brand names too. But there's quite a bunch of them out there. And I'm sure there are more that early ones, small EVs that were in production. And when we talk small EVs, that is usually small battery and relatively low range, right? So now if you have a vehicle that has relatively low range, well, you're plugging in quite frequently. If you use something like that as a daily driver and you got 40 or 50 miles of range and you're driving 20, 30 miles a day, you obviously take advantage of every charging option you have and you plug in, right? And every time you come home, you plug in. But I'm saying you plug in, I don't say you charge, right? So there's a difference between being plugged in and charging. So with many cars back when, you could not adjust the charging limit, which means it would charge to full, to 100%, but then it would stop charging. Yes, you're still plugged in, but it stopped charging. Same like your cell phone. If you plug in your cell phone, it will charge eventually to 100%, but then it will stop charging. Cell phones nowadays even track you and they know your habits and everything. And so if you go to bed and you plug your cell phone in, it will charge to 80%. But then it knows you're usually getting up at 7 a.m. So then by, I don't know, 5:36, it will start charging again. So by the time you get up, it is at 100%, right? And cell phones do that automatically these days because, yeah, they know you, they track you, they follow you. So, and nowadays also we can adjust the maximum charge in cars. For the same reason the cell phone does this weird thing and doesn't go to 100% right away usually. For the same reason we can actually adjust the maximum charge on cars. On cars, nowadays we have way more range and we may not need that much range anyway. So why charge to 100%? Just because we fill a gas car up to 100% doesn't mean we should charge our EV to 100%. So a little bit of battery education here. Anytime you go below 20% or above 80% on a lithium-ion battery, the battery doesn't like that. I just say it eats itself up. It doesn't literally eat itself up, but there are chemical reactions inside the battery that degrade it. So you don't get the longevity out of the battery. Now, batteries have gotten so great and have actually done way better than expected that, well, many people charge to 100% and never even have an issue. But it is best to keep your electric car between 20 and 80. But when you need it to travel, well, you charge to 100%. You drive it down to 1%. I do that frequently. I don't care. If I can pull in at 0% at a charger while I'm traveling, that's totally fine with me. And I do not recommend you necessarily do that because you may run out before you make it to the charger. I may run out. I've been lucky, I guess, so far. I never did run out. But then, yes, you just immediately charge it so it's above 20% again. So basically keep it between 20 and 80 is kind of the idea. And don't let it sit at 100% fully charged. Don't let it sit below 20% discharged. So keep it in between the two when you let it sit, when it's not plugged in even. So you don't have to plug in all the time. As we just figured out, charging will stop automatically anyway, depending on a setting that you can do or your vehicle does for you. It depends a little bit. Like I said, most vehicles today, you can set the maximum charge. You can also use timers and things to just make it charge for a certain amount of time. There are level 2 EVSE chargers, what we call them, the commonly that you can have at home, where you can set a certain level. Even if your vehicle would charge to 100%, that EVSE would actually stop the charging for you at 75 or 80% or whatever you want it to if your car is not capable. So ABC actually never really existed because we wouldn't be always charging. Why did Björn Nyland to refer to it as ABC? Well, again, chargers were far and few in between. So there was not much out there. You had to take advantage of every possibility to charge. Also, he lives in Norway. I don't know where you live. I live in Montana. Cold climate, just like Norway. In a cold climate, an electric car has to keep its battery warm above freezing so that when you get in, you can go, right? If a car wouldn't do that, then you couldn't go. You would potentially do damage to the battery depending on how cold it is, or the battery would not even deliver any power whatsoever. So electric vehicles have to keep batteries usually just right above freezing while they're parked. And with many of them, they have some tricky things built in to keep the battery warm. Actually, a tricky thing was the Chevy Volt with a V as in Victor, which was a hybrid. But because it had a gas engine, it was able to heat up a coolant reservoir, and that coolant reservoir was hot when you parked the car, and it was able to keep the battery pack warm for quite some time. So that was pretty cool. But now we have all battery electric EVs. We don't have an engine anymore. So nowadays we just keep it warm with the electricity that's actually in the battery pack. While we're driving, we can use some other means usually as things warm up while driving. The motors get warm. We can steal some warmth from there to heat up a battery pack. But while we're parked, there's really no other way but to use electricity, which usually comes from your battery pack, unless you are plugged in. So you may not be charging, but you may be plugged in. And if you're plugged in and your car starts heating the battery pack, well, then it uses the power from the grid and you do not discharge your battery. At least with most EVs. So like in the case of the early Tesla Model S that Björn had, that had an actual battery heater that I think used 6 or 7 kilowatts. That is quite a bit. So depending on where he was able to plug in his vehicle, the grid was not able to provide him even enough to do so. So to keep the battery warm all the time was very important at that time in this cold climate that he was in. And that still applies to me actually today, because we have a 2013 Tesla Model S. If I let the car just sit, not plugged in, within about a week, it will probably drain from about 80 to 20% or so just for heating the battery. But we're talking about old technology here. This is 13 years old. Technology has way improved. Most vehicles don't necessarily have a designated battery heater anymore. And if they do, they're usually not 6-7 kilowatts. They're a little bit smaller because we don't really need that much heat. We can maybe run it a little longer or a little more frequent to keep the battery at a certain temperature. Also, over a decade now, there was so much information where manufacturers learned about battery packs that the battery heating is not such a problem anymore. So nowadays, if you let a car sit, a modern car sit within a week during freezing temperatures, it depends a little bit how cold it is, right? Cold for you is maybe different than cold for me, right? So if you're freezing at 60 degrees, that's obviously not a problem for your car. But, you know, if we're talking freezing temperatures, 32 degrees Fahrenheit or less, that's when a car has to do more. Now, if we're going below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, that's when it will use even more. Now, all that said, if you put a car into a garage, even if it's not heated and that garage is kept or stays above freezing, it's not a big problem anymore either. So it all depends. There's so many variations. Now, people that don't like EVs, are against EVs, they keep coming with this ABC and they bring this forward and say, hey, look, in the wintertime, you have to keep this plugged in all the time or it's going to be a problem. Well, in general, we all use and drive our vehicles daily or every other day. So is it really a problem then, even in the wintertime? Not really. So for many of us, we don't necessarily have charging available at home. If you live in an apartment, you may not have availability to charge at home. So you go to a DC fast charger and charge up, or you go to the gym, or maybe you can charge at work. Who knows, right? So there are other options to charge. If you're going on vacation or on a road trip for several days, well, you usually only charge at DC fast chargers when needed, and you may let the car sit for a day or two, especially once you're at your location and you're just driving slow through town there or something. You may not need to charge for several days. There is enough energy in the battery to run around town, whatever, right? No big deal. So ABC never really existed because you can't always be charging. That would destroy a battery. But being plugged in did exist and still has benefits today, especially in cold climates. Or even in really hot climates, actually. So because with modern cars nowadays, you usually have an app, right? And in your app, you can turn on the heater or the climate control, your AC, right? If you're in a hot climate, I don't know, Phoenix, Las Vegas, or whatever, right? It's hot, hot, hot. You want to turn on your AC before you get in it. So you use your app, type whatever, hit, and it turns on. Now, if you are plugged in, it will use electricity from the grid to do so, rather than from your battery, which has the advantage that you do not use up the range. I'm going to call it range here. Obviously, there's no range in the battery. There's basically electricity in the battery. But if you use that electricity, obviously you have less range. And if you can use it from the grid, you keep the range. So that is an advantage. Is it a must-have or no? It doesn't matter. If you're not plugged in, it will use a little bit from the battery. And I even have made a video one time about in wintertime what it really takes to heat an electric car, because so many people are worried. Well, if you get stuck in traffic, you know, when traffic shuts down and you don't go anywhere for 5 hours, you're gonna run out and die in your electric car and whatever. So even though people that get stuck in traffic when they already have no fuel left, well, they run out and die. Well, with electric cars, it's not a big deal, but there's a video that I have, so you can go check that out to see how little it uses to keep heat on or to turn the heat on or your AC, right? But yeah, the advantage is if you're plugged in, it uses it from there. It's not charging the battery. It's just using electricity basically straight from the grid to cool your car down or to heat your car up. So that is an advantage, especially if you're planning to go on a huge road trip and you want all the range you can get. So you would charge it to 100%, obviously. But then, if you charge it to 100% and then you let your heater run for 2 hours before you leave, well, then you don't have 100% anymore unless you're plugged in. You're not charging anymore, but you're using the electricity from the grid to power your heater or your climate control so that you can get into a comfortable car. And if the car is already at the temperature that you wanted it to be, then as you start driving, you're not using any extra electricity from the battery pack because you use that straight from the grid, right? So this is quite an advantage, because if you have a gas car and you need to run your gas car to warm it up or cool it down, you're actually always using the energy out of your gas tank. You're using gas. You're idling, which is, by the way, 0 miles per gallon. Couldn't get any worse. So with a gas vehicle, you do not have the option of actually using energy from somewhere else. You have to use the energy that's on the vehicle. So that's an advantage. So ABC, again, it's a myth. It doesn't matter. Some people ask, why do I have to charge every night? Can I not just go 3 or 4 days because I drive very little? Yes, you can if that's what you want. Do so. If you're in an extremely cold climate, you may have to heat up your battery. So if you're plugged in, you're not losing any of the charge you have in your battery. You're not using any. You're not really losing it. You're just using it. But other than that, it really doesn't matter. And how fast do you charge? Does it matter? Not really. It has been shown that even people that only do DC fast charging, their batteries really don't degrade any faster than people that do level 2 charging, which is 240 volts. There are people that talk about, oh, you should do level 1 charging, that's better. And then there are people, level 1 charging would be 120 volts. And then there are people that say, no, that is too slow, you need to do this. It really doesn't matter. Batteries have improved greatly over the past decade, that you can do almost anything. I mean, what does it matter if you get 330,000 miles out of this battery or 335,000 miles out of this battery? It doesn't matter for most people because most people don't even keep their cars that long. So ABC today is a myth. It's not needed. Charging is it's impossible. You would overcharge if you're always charging. And so being plugged in doesn't mean you're charging. Your car does control how much charge that goes into the battery. Your car controls how fast you're charging too. So if your car says, oh, I'm a little hot or I'm a little cold here in the battery pack, it will reduce your charging rate. If you like it or not, it's just going to do that. Mostly you will see that at DC fast chargers. So yeah, the car controls completely how much, how fast, and everything else with the battery today. ABC no longer applies. You can do pretty much what you want without really hurting your battery. The Tesla we have here, our 2013, 230,000 miles. There's many others out there on the first battery pack with several 100,000 miles on it. And many of them didn't really do what they were supposed to do. Even today, many people do a lot of DC fast charging on a modern, new electric car. They put on 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 miles on in just a few years, really quick. These people are pretty much always DC fast charging, otherwise they couldn't get that many miles on a vehicle in such a short time. Now, if you watched some of our videos over the years, I have lots of wintertime driving videos where I say, leave your car plugged in. Why? Again, just because I can preheat my car before I start driving. I bring it up to temperature, the inside of the car. And then I basically keep all the electricity in the battery, so I'm not losing or I'm not using any of the range. So when I start driving, I basically have the same range as always for my daily drive. And I just use the grid power to warm it up. So that is the benefit of leaving a car plugged in, so that a car can heat or cool the cabin for you, that the car could heat, which is probably the most common one. Sometimes there may be cooling needed, depending, I guess, if you live in Phoenix, Arizona, it may get pretty hot. So you may need some battery cooling, even when the vehicle is just parked, probably on black pavement or something. So it just has the benefit that it's using the electricity straight from the grid when you're plugged in, rather than using it from your battery. So you have all that in the battery available for driving. So nowadays, I do have too many EVs and not enough chargers. we do actually have 4 electric vehicles at this point, and they can't be all plugged in because for quite some time I had one charger available. I was able to use sometimes a plug-in type charger, so I had a second one. Now I have 2 chargers available. I could do a third one, a plug-in type, if I really was desperate, but at this point my daughter is basically the only one that drives regularly every day going to school. And so she gets the nice spot in the garage with her Tesla. Well, her Tesla actually, and there's a video coming, has a little damage in the front now. She got into a little accident with an animal, but that's a different video. So she's actually driving our 2013 Tesla Model S with 230 some thousand miles on it now. That's her daily driver now. So yeah, she gets a spot, she gets to be plugged in, she can preheat the car even warmer. Our garage is about 50, so she likes to preheat it up to 70. But besides that, like the rest of the vehicles, they sit around, usually outside. My Cybertruck's been sitting outside most of the time and is hardly ever plugged in. If I go somewhere and it's really low, if we're coming down low to 30 or less percent, then I usually try to plug it in within a day or two. But we really don't bother much. Same thing with the Rivian. Yeah, we just kind of plug in as we need to, as we're using. But other than that, they're sitting out in the cold. Right now it's winter and they're sitting out in the cold, and yeah, it's just not a problem. There's nothing to be afraid of. The car will take care of it. You just need to make sure you don't run out of electricity. And that's a point that all these EV haters bring forward, and they say, well, my gas tank doesn't deplete when the car just sits there. And that is correct. It doesn't really go down. Actually, well, with modern cars, it's a bit less of a problem. With older cars, it's been a problem at times, actually, because when people let a vehicle sit for a winter or something, gas would evaporate. Gas does evaporate pretty quick. And it would leave a gummy substance behind and usually gum up your filters or fuel pumps or lines or something, and you would have a problem after that, which is still a problem with like small engine stuff, chainsaws, lawnmowers, and things like that. This is still a pretty common problem. So gas isn't perfect either, but yes, they're correct. They could let the car sit for a month and really would not see any difference. But I don't know. The little bit that especially electricity usually costs at home that the car uses during, let's say, a month to just keep a battery warm is very little. I mean, if you skip your Starbucks coffee that is $6, $7, $8, $9 a pop, if you skip it once a month, you probably paid for that real easy. So people waste a lot more money on other things than this is really affecting them. Like I said, I personally do not worry about it. ABC is no longer a thing, especially it's been false from the beginning. We're not always charging, we're just being plugged in, and the car charges to the maximum you have it set to. The car does whatever it needs on its own to keep the battery warm or cold, cooler, it cools it down or heats it up as needed. Technology has come a long way since we started with production EVs. We are at least, we're about 2 decades into production EVs at this point. One of the very early ones was the Tesla Roadster. Started production, I believe, in 2007. So we're basically 2 decades into production EVs at this point, and there's a lot of experience. And so, yeah, there's nothing really to worry about. If you go on a road trip, you don't need to plug in every night. It doesn't matter. You just let it sit. Watch our travel videos. We just came back recently from a trip from Banff National Park in Canada. And obviously, while we're there, we couldn't plug in every night. We just used the superchargers to charge up as needed. And so we would go a day or two sometimes without charging at all. We did a lot of driving, a lot of road trips, so there was some charging required because of that. But we were not plugged in at night. It doesn't matter. You don't plug in if you don't need to. You can do pretty much what you want, but try to keep it between 20 and 80. Unless you're traveling and you need 100%, then you definitely want to charge to 100%. And you can drive down below 20. Just don't let it sit. That is kind of the key. Then there won't be any battery issues. But I'm sure that there's been so many out there, especially these 10-year-old cars that been at zero before and sat at zero for a longer time. And I don't know. They don't necessarily go bad, or you're not just going to lose 100 miles range or something real quick. So yeah, ABC is a myth. Don't worry about it. Keep it between 20 and 80% of charge and you'll be good. Actually, lithium ion batteries like to be at 50% and about 70 degrees, just like people do, right? If we eat too much and we're stuffed, we're feeling bad. If we're hungry, we're feeling bad. We don't want to be that. We want to just be right about half full, 50%. Same thing for a battery. Temperature 70 degrees works for most people. You're not sweating, you're not freezing. Works great for a lithium battery pack too. They like that. So that's the key. You just want to keep it around there if possible. For us, like when we used to go, or now our daughter, she drives daily, we charge to 75%. She comes back with anywhere from about 30 to 40% or so, which keeps it right around 50. The car is really happy, and it's supposedly the best for the longevity of the battery, but there are so many out there that haven't done this and still got a couple 100,000 or more miles out of a battery pack without any issues. So don't worry about ABC. Just do what you need to do. Keep it between 20 and 80. Unless you need to go higher or lower, no problem. Just don't let it sit, and you'll be totally fine. So, and for more real life information about electric cars, we have been driving electric cars only since 2018. I've not had any other cars since 2018. And we kind of replaced our Dodge 1-ton dually pretty much with the Cybertruck, or even the Rivian helps out because the Rivian can tow a trailer as well. But most of the time we don't need this 1-ton truck for us anymore. Once a year we haul a load of hay for our critters. That's definitely when we need it, because then we're way heavier. And once in a while there's some construction equipment that we haul around, but I think for now it's been sitting for 6, 8, maybe 10 months. Haven't even used it because we can do all the hauling with an electric truck at this point. So yeah, but for all the real life stuff, go so click on our channel icon and go look at all the videos we have. We have videos with different cars throughout the years, and we have wintertime road trips, summertime road trips. We have it all. It's all there, and it's all real life. It's not just where we test a vehicle for like 2 weeks or something, or 2 days, right? No, we live at those vehicles. We put many miles on them. So go check that out if you want real life EV information. Also, down below in the description, we got some links to some companies that we get accessories from and stuff. Use those links. There are discount codes usually there too. Use those discount codes so you can get it a little cheaper. And once in a while, we get a little kickback from one of those companies, or they send us a part for free or something. So, and then we can test that out for you and show you if that is even worth buying or not. So yeah. Also, give us a thumbs up for this video, and for every other video of ours that you watch, always give us a thumbs up pretty early on in the video. That stimulates the YouTube algorithm. And make sure you are subscribed. Please help us spread the real life information about electric vehicles. And this can only be done if everyone subscribes. We have about 70% of the people that watch our videos are not subscribed. So hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything. You don't get any spam mail. But if you'd like a notification when we bring out a new video, hit that notification bell. And then you get a simple notification from YouTube that we have a new video, so you can come back give us a thumbs up for the new video, and get all the info you need about real life electric vehicle living. Well, that was it for today. In any event, thank you for watching. Goodbye.